Do you live in the US and want an easy way to eat well and save money this year? Well, our discount might just be the one for you. HelloFresh is the US #1 meal kit service and delivers fast, fresh and affordable food to your door. So why have the cost of takeout or that horrible trip to the grocery store? Just get it delivered to you and have a hassle-free dinner of the highest quality.
So why not check out HelloFresh? Click the link down below for your special discount.
Hello and welcome along to a croaky match day 41 of Championship predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. We're back with the Easter Monday edition with one promotion place already wrapped up in the Championship. Congratulations to Burnley and Vincent Kompany, who have had a brilliant season. Just 2 defeats in 39 games and they are up with 7 to spare. You cannot give them any fault at all. For us though, we're going to move on to Monday's fixtures and try and predict a few perfect scores, because we're on a long, poor run on that front. But before we do, very quickly, apologies for the voice. Let's go and have a quick recap of the Good Friday fixtures. And I didn't do very well again. Much better on the outcome front. I got 5 correct outcomes to get 5 points this weekend. However, it wasn't enough to win the match day because Tony was back in form with 8, a Championship's favourite scoreline for Reading v Birmingham, and also the 1-0 win for Sheffield United at home to Wigan contributed to his 8 points overall. The W&G fan level with me on 5, but wins by courtesy of a perfect score. That was the 2-0 win for Preston at QPR, so well done to both of you who beat me this match day. But let's move on to Monday's fixtures. Again, 12 games in a day, and hopefully we're going to see some very important results, particularly from a Luton Town point of view. It's all getting very tense at the top and the bottom, so let's start with an early kickoff that affects both ends of the table. It is Neil Warnock's Huddersfield Town against Blackburn Rovers, managed by Yondell Thomason. Blackburn in 6th place, just in the playoffs by a point now. They had a disappointing defeat at home to Norwich, 3 in a row in all competitions for them. Whereas for Huddersfield, it is 3 wins in a row after a 3-2 victory at Watford. We're not going to talk about Watford discipline yet, but Huddersfield again took advantage. In their last 5 games, they have played 5 teams in playoff contention and they have won 3, drawn 1, picked up 10 points. It is an incredible effort from Warnock. The only worry I have now, and the problem looking forward, and we saw it a few weeks ago with them, is we're back to playing every 3 days or so. And is that Huddersfield squad big enough? Of course, the momentum's there, the confidence is there. The John Smiths will be raucous on Monday. Add to it is Yorkshire v Lancashire as well. It's going to be a very good atmosphere. And against a Blackburn side who are struggling, have lost their last 3 away games in League and Cup, it all bodes well for them. But this is what the Championship does to you. We saw with Stoke and Bristol City on Friday. Form means nothing. Pressure is the problem. Because Huddersfield are now out of that relegation zone and suddenly they're favourites to stay up. How are they going to react to that? They've got a lot of young players coming into the squad, and those fresh legs, that lack of fear might well work out. And of course, you wouldn't back against Neil Warnock. But I've just got a funny feeling that after Huddersfield have spent 3 games busting coupons, they're now going to be on the other end of it, because I think a lot of people are going to go for them. Blackburn have got a slightly bigger squad. They've got quality when they're at their best. And although only 3 sides in the Championship have lost more away games than them this season, although Huddersfield are flying under Warnock, I'm going to go for a Blackburn win, and I've got nothing on it other than a hunch. I hope Huddersfield stay up. I hope Blackburn make the playoffs because I feel Luton can beat them. But I'm going to go for Blackburn to win it by 2-1. No logic to start the day, but I've got a funny feeling about this one. Let's move on to the 3 p.m. fixtures, and the first one is one of the few games in the Championship with absolutely nothing to play for this week, because it is Birmingham City versus Stoke City. It is 16th v 14th, one on 49 points, one on 51. I don't think there's any danger for either of them, and I don't think they're getting near the playoffs. For Birmingham, a 1-1 draw away at Reading, a decent game, but let's be fair, neither side probably did enough to win it. For Stoke against Bristol City, I mean, it just sums up the Championship. Stoke were flying, producing some of the best performances we've seen from them probably in 2 or 3 seasons. And Bristol City were flying out of form. They were getting booed off at times by their own fans. And then that happened. I know that statistically Stoke had a couple more shots than on target, but Bristol City had the best chances in that game. Probably should have had a third as well. And from 1-0 up, Stoke have showed those old frailties again. And I made this pact. I said it in the comments on the Friday video. For Stoke, Bristol City in the future now, the two sides since we've started doing these predictions that have probably been consistently the most inconsistent. I think when these two face each other next season, we're just going to draw them out of a hat. But for Stoke this Monday, I'm not sure it helps them. Surely they bounce back. They've been brilliant in their last away game at Coventry. Birmingham don't score many. I know they don't concede many, but they struggled against Watford a few weeks back. Again, I'm going for crazy scores. We're going to see tired legs, and I think the smaller squads may struggle on Monday. So, against my better judgment, I'm going for Stoke to win it, and I think I'm going to go for them to win it pretty comfortably. I'm going for a big win for the visitors by 3-0, but well done for Birmingham getting safe, and Stoke, you are making this job impossible. Next up is another big game for one team at the bottom. It is Cardiff City versus Sunderland. Sunderland only 6 points off the playoffs in fairness. Maybe they're not out of it. They would have been a lot closer if they hadn't let in that last second goal against Hull City. Who expected these teams to be in the thrillers of the weekend? A 4-4 draw at the Stadium of Light. Just one of those games, isn't it? There's no point reading anything into it. It was just one of those bonkers nights. And fair play to Sky, because I thought they picked a dud when they went for that one. For Cardiff, a 3-1 win away at Blackpool. A brilliant result against the teams around them. And if you look at Cardiff, since Sabri Lamucci's come in, generally they're the games they've won. They beat Bristol City, they beat Blackpool. They were beating Rotherham before that game was abandoned. They're picking up points in the games that matter most. So you've got to give them credit. I'm not sure this one's going to be as easy for them because we know Sunderland are a top 6 side away from home. We know the threat they've got on their counter. And to be fair, they finally started scoring goals last weekend, albeit they couldn't stop them at the other end this time. We know away from home they're strong. We know Cardiff at home, if they win, it's going to be 1-0. And I don't think they're going to keep a clean sheet against Sunderland. So again, I have to go for an away win in this one. But after all the excitement in the two games these sides were involved in on Friday, 12 goals between the two of them, I'm going for a 1-0 away win. Because that's what the Championship does to you. Well, next up, take away my bias. It's a game where you almost say home banker. It is Coventry City versus Watford. Watford, I don't know what's happened to. I mean, take aside the Luton bias. They've got one of the best teams in the league on paper. There's no spirit. There's no discipline. I mean, Daniel Backman's 97th minute antics just sum up that game. And I know he didn't make contact with Pearson, but the kung fu kick after getting booked just before, I mean, what are you doing? Where is the discipline in the team? Chris Wilder looks like he doesn't really care if he's there or not, to be brutally honest. He doesn't look like he's happy with the squad he's got. And Watford now are just coasting to the end of the season. Of course, after this one, they've got 5 very winnable games on paper. They could yet make the playoffs, but it looks awfully unlikely based on their last 3 performances. For Coventry, a disappointing day, I guess, at Swansea, but important to keep the clean sheet after that thumping last week. And we know at home, generally, they're strong. I know they had that shocker against Stoke. I know they drew against Hull. And we have this problem with Coventry. They either score 4 goals like they did at Blackpool and Huddersfield, or they struggle to draws and just lack that ruthless edge. They don't seem to have a consistent threat. But I think they win this game. It's hard to back for Watford at the minute. Even if you're a Watford fan, you must agree with that. There's not been much in the performances to offer hope. And Coventry away is probably the toughest game on paper they got left. So I'm going to go for a Coventry win. I think they'll keep another clean sheet. I'm going to go by 2-0. But if Watford turn up, they've got all the tools to win any game at this level. We move on to two teams who experience very different Fridays next. It is Hull City versus Millwall. Millwall, a hard-fought 0-0 draw at home to Luton. It was two very good, solid, resolute sides that battled it out hard there. Millwall probably just edged the territory, but in the end, did they do enough to win it? Probably not. But 2 0-0s against 2 playoff contending rivals. I don't think they'll be too disappointed with this week, depending on how the whole game goes. They were involved, as we mentioned a bit earlier, in that 4-4 thriller at Sunderland. I mean, Liam Rosenior, we talked about it on the Friday episode, was just starting to get a few whisperings that Atcham was looking elsewhere for more entertainment. Well, Liam Rosenior delivered, didn't he? An absolute whirlwind of a game, but they got the point. It's 3 draws in a row, 4 out of 5, and do you know what? I think he's done a good job there. I've said it for a long time. It needs a summer. It needs a few players coming in. I think overall, Hull should be happy with what's happened the rest of this year. They've got nothing to play for really at the minute. Millwall have got plenty to play for in the playoff places. I think they win this away from home. I'm going to split the difference of the goals in the last game for each of them. Instead of 8 or 0, I'm going to go for 4. Millwall will get the lion's share of them though. It's going to be 3-1 for Millwall away at Hull. Next up, I refuse to use the word for the game I'm going to be at because it is Luton Town versus Blackpool. I think we all know the B word I'm thinking, but I'm not saying it just for superstition. Luton Town, that good hard-fought draw at Millwall as we mentioned, and for Blackpool, a very damaging defeat. 3 in a row now, Cardiff being a crucial one. They were the closest side to the relegation zone at the start of the day, and they've allowed them to pull away. For Blackpool now, 7 points from safety, and they're going to have to start to target and win these games that don't seem winnable on paper. 3 defeats in a row, 10 conceded. Is not looking good, is it? And although Luton haven't been the most ruthless in front of goal, it's 5 clean sheets in 6. The only goal they've conceded in those last 6 was that controversial penalty at Sunderland. And they look really solid. They look assured of the playoffs. To be in 3rd place with one of the bottom 5 budgets in the league wage-wise is incredible. And if Luton win this game, they can look at the 8 p.m. between Burnley and Sheffield United and say, hey, we might be in the battle for 2nd if we get the victory in our game. So they've got to do their job early. I hate doing it, and I know it might go wrong. It's the sort of game where the Championship can really get you. But I am going to go for Luton to get it. I don't think they're going to win comfortably. I don't think this is going to be a breeze. I'm going to go for them to nick it because Blackpool are just too poor at the back. 2-1 for Luton Town is my cautious prediction. I would love Blackpool to fold and make it comfortable for us. We're off to Carrow Road next for Norwich City versus Rotherham. Both sides with excellent results and performances on Friday. For Rotherham, I mean, we mentioned it. I know we went the other way in the end in our prediction, but we said they have that odd home game where they just turn up and play like world beaters, and that was one of them. They blew West Brom away in terms of chances. It wasn't a great performance from the visitors, but Rotherham were at their very best and thoroughly deserved the win. One more of those in the last 7 games. Maybe they're safe, I would say. For Norwich, proper counter-attacking display. Pretty even game with Blackburn, but they were ruthless. They took their chances, and as a result, they are back. Maybe even favourites for that playoff place now. Just 1 point behind Blackburn, who they beat, and closed the gap. Built some momentum. Maybe he'll do it yet, David Wagner. For Norwich at home to Rotherham, I have to back the host because as good as Rotherham were at home, as great as they were against West Brom, they're awful on the road. They've only won 2 games, the least in the division. They've only picked up 15 points, and they've only scored 11 goals, which is the least of anyone away from home. As a result of that, I'm going to go for the same score for Norwich. Rotherham will not get their goal on the road. Norwich City 2, Rotherham United 0. Next up is another big game at both ends of the table. It is Preston North End against Reading. Reading drop into the bottom 3 following an awful week on and off the pitch. A 6-point deduction, a 1-1 draw at home to Birmingham. Andy Carroll confronting a fan. And of course, they are now in that bottom 3. A fair few sides they can catch, but away from home, you probably wouldn't back them to do much. They've got the worst record in the division, just 12 points from 20 games on the road. And against the Preston side, who, albeit have been poor at home most of the season, are finding form at the perfect time. They've won their last 2 home games against teams down there in Blackpool and Cardiff. They are up to 8th place, just 2 points off the playoffs. And you know what? Ryan Lowe might well be pulling this off. The only defeat was a big one against Borough, but the 4 games they've played against sides down there, they've got results and victories against all of them. It's very hard to predict otherwise in this one. I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to go big because Reading, again, I mentioned it in the first couple of games of this prediction show, smaller squad struggles to cope with the 2 games in 3 days. I could have egg on my face for this one. I'm going for Preston to win by 3-0. Well, a disappointing Friday for both of these sides, but who's going to bounce back? It is West Bromwich Albion against Queen's Park Rangers. They are in big trouble. A 2-0 defeat against Preston made it 4 in a row since that win against Watford. 10 goals conceded, none scored in the last 3. And the post-match interview really worried me because Gareth Ainsworth is one of the most probably likeable, charismatic, and probably one of the most energy-filled characters you normally see in interviews. And he just looked despondent. He didn't look like he had any connection with the team. He didn't look like he believed in the team. And he looked like a man who had made a decision with heart rule in head and not realising what was wrong with the club. It is amazing to think where they were a year ago, still fighting for the playoffs with one of the worst injury crises you'll ever see in the Championship. Mark Warburton went, the rot started towards the end under Mick Beale, and they just can't get out of it. Without any manager, the confidence is gone. QPR need to find a way to survive by any means possible, and then it's time for a big rebuild in the summer. But against West Brom, who haven't won in 3 themselves, it is going to be a little bit tricky. We mentioned about them not taking chances in other games. but they can have no complaints at Rotherham. They were outplayed. Rotherham were brilliant. West Brom have not been great in front of goal for a long time. It's very hard to back them to score more than one, albeit QPR is a side you might predict that. Can't predict anything other than a QPR defeat. So West Brom to get back to winning ways. Nothing dramatic, but 1-0. The big games keep coming at the bottom as Wigan Athletic are hosting Swansea. Swansea reached the 50-point mark with a draw over Coventry. That's them done and safe for the season. For Wigan, though, it is a huge game. 8 points off because of that deduction, of course, but a number of teams dropping, and with the form of QPR or Reading, you'd argue all they need to do is get those 8 points because you don't see many good scorelines coming from the other two. It was a 1-0 defeat at Sheffield United. Very important for the goal difference that they didn't lose by more. And we mentioned it in the comments on Friday. They've got a lot of winnable games coming up. They didn't have a great game at Sheffield United, albeit they had a couple of good chances still. But this game is one that they've got to try and win. Swansea have found a little bit of form. 2 clean sheets in 3, 7 points and a win in a derby. But before that, it was 3 defeats against top sides. And it was sides that were putting them to the sword. We know Swansea aren't the best defensively. We've got a side that have conceded 59 against a side that have conceded 60. It should be a thriller. It should be entertaining. But when Sean Maloney's sides have been at their best since he's joined Wigan, they've generally been a bit more resolute. I'm not sure they're going to win this game, and I'm not sure they're going to do enough to stay up. But I do think they're going to get something. I'm going to go back to what Wigan were doing before the international break. I'm going for a Championship's favourite scoreline. Taking me 10 games this Monday. I'm going for 1-1 between Wigan and Swansea. 2 to go then as we move on to the 5:30 kickoff, which is Bristol City versus Middlesbrough. Borough beaten by Burnley to hand the visitors promotion on the day. Back-to-back defeats for them for the first time since Michael Carrick joined. Are they now having the wobble at the wrong time? It's a bit early to call it that, but this game is going to be huge in determining it. It's a side with nothing to play for in Bristol City who just showed what the Championship is on Friday. 3 poor performances with 1 point and then a great win away at Stoke where they probably should have had a third as well. It just makes it very difficult, doesn't it? I do worry about Borough a little bit now. They've started conceding goals. That's 6 in 2 games. They'd conceded in 2 of the 3 games previous as well. They could easily turn up and steamroller Bristol City. If they're at their best, we know they can do that. I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit. I'm going to go for a thrilling score draw by 2 goals apiece. Bristol City, they look good against Stoke, but 2 good performances in a row. They're very hard to come by down there. The final game at 8 PM sees the first promoted side in the Championship against the side who will be hoping to wrap up second. It is Burnley v Sheffield United. I think Sky thought this was going to be more important when they picked this game. Burnley wrapped up their very early promotion with a 2-1 win at Middlesbrough. Usual effort from them. They're very solid. Everything that needs to be said about Burnley has been said. Good luck to them going up to the Premier League. For Sheffield United though, form at the right time. 4 wins in a row, including that cup game. They just look like they've got the momentum at the minute. I predicted them to win it pre-season, as you know, and I think they're going to get over the line. As much as I'd like them to stumble and Luton to nick that second place, it is a big test for them, but will Burnley now go and chase that big 100-point mark? Will they go and chase the fact that they can break that points record? They've still only lost 2 games. Is it a matter of pride? They're invincible at home. Will they want to keep that? I hope so, from a Luton point of view. But Sheffield United are a very good side. I know the FA Cup semi-finals coming up, but it's not distracted them so far. And they're doing what great sides do. They're nicking 1-0 wins and they're making sure they get over the line. For this game, I don't think they're going to keep their winning run going. It's hard to predict what we're going to get from Burnley, but I'm expecting Vincent Kompany's side to be professional, to make sure they're at their best. And to be fair, if they avoid defeat in this one, it virtually secures them the title, doesn't it? So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, finish with a second Championship's favourite scoreline. But well done to Vincent Kompany's Burnley, and with that result, the title will not be far away. Let's have a quick recap of my predictions for Monday then. I've gone for a slight surprise at the start, which on paper looks a bit weird based on the table, but Blackburn to win at Huddersfield. What have we got at the bottom and top? Wigan to pick up a point, Blackpool to lose, so it looks like QPR might have a stay of execution outside the bottom 3. I have got them to lose as well as Reading though, with Stoke, with Millwall and with Preston being the 3 sides to score 3 goals this weekend. It's always impossible to predict at this stage of the season though. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my predictions down in the comments. Give me your scorelines as well for this Easter Monday action, and if you beat my predictions overall, you will get a shout out in the next episode. That one will be out next Thursday as normal as we return to the Saturday weekend fixtures. If you did enjoy this episode, please do put a thumbs up on it. Subscribe to stay up to date with the Honest Football Podcast. Loads of matchday clips to come later in the season. Thank you very much for watching as always. The voice has made it through the episode. And I'll see you again on Thursday for another round of Championship predictions.